Hi, this is our fourth video from the Ancestral Healing Deck, and we're talking today about more emotions. So we're going to start off with emotional expression. So that's another sphere of sorts. A 12-pointed star turned inside a sphere symbolizes maturity in how we express our emotions. The sphere, being a symbol of wholeness and completion, points to the goal of adult living. Emotions can be understood as E-motion, with the E representing energy. So energy in motion. It's when we block out our feelings and don't allow them to have motion that we condemn ourselves to existing rather than truly living. Emotions tend to behave like a set of Christmas lights. Remove one bulb and all the others go out as well. Can I identify the emotion I find most difficult to express? Can our negative emotions be transformed when we stop resisting and allow them to just be? Can denying our feelings result in periods of being emotionally flooded? Can depression result from repression of how we really feel? Can I find new ways of expressing my emotional life? The human person is a speck of intellect on a sea of emotion. Okay, so you can answer those questions if you want. You can do a little bit of journaling about them. And I'll move on to the next card, emotional literacy. And we have a little boat with an oar, 2 oars. A simple rowing boat provides a useful symbol for how we deal with our emotions. Do we row against the flow or do we go along with it? Emotional life is like a river. It is easy to be swept along by positive feelings like love, joy, and success. With the negative emotions, the tendency is to get in our boat and row as hard as we can against the current. This is our way of trying to block whatever is coming towards us. What we resist doesn't just persist, but it gets stronger, and we end up becoming emotionally swamped. To turn the boat around and go with the current of feelings is to be brought to a new place of transformation. So feeling the feelings, I mentioned that in some of the videos before this. If I go with the flow of sadness, will I come to a place of peace? If I stay with my loneliness, will I discover solitude? If I befriend my anger, will I awaken my creativity? That's coming up in one of the cards. I'm going to speak about, well, I may as well speak about it here. Like, our anger can also move us forward into doing something or making something or changing something. So anger can be good. It's how we work with it and work through it that can be the negative. If somebody angers us, there's no point in getting angry back. It's, look at me. Why are my buttons pressed? Why did this happen? What am I suppressing? What do I need to look at? What lesson do I need to learn? And then, right, okay, I'm doing this, this, and this. Yes, I have to change this, this, and this. Yes, I'll put up with this. No, I won't put up with that. What will I tolerate? What won't I? What do I accept in my life? What won't I accept in my life? And what's my responsibility and what's others? So emotion is energy in motion. Now, of course, childhood conditioning. We learned a lot through our childhood and we took on patterns, family patterns, as well, as we have spoken about before. A 6-pointed star turned inside a cube provides a useful symbol for the manner in which our childhood conditioning can still influence us in adult life. While a sphere represents wholeness and completion, the cube is a shape that is more appropriate to our childhood experiences of the cot, playpen, and building blocks. As adults, our ability to express emotions is usually affected by messages we received as children. In some families, to show emotion is to be considered a weakling. This can result in the adult facing life's issues in a stoical manner, always keeping a stiff upper lip. Likewise, if "big boys don't cry" was the childhood message, how will it block the adult made from resolving grief? I'll start that again. If "big boys don't cry" was the childhood message, how will it block the adult male from resolving grief? If "anger is forbidden" was the message received, what will the adult do with his or her anger? If touch and affection was lacking, how will the adult be in relation to touch and to giving and receiving affection? If I were to be a parent to my own inner child, how would I change the script? The child is the parent of the adult. So some inner child work, and actually, I'm not sure, I think there's an inner child card, but what were you taught in childhood about all the different emotions? Or were you told to, stop that, you'll be all right. Don't be doing that, you're bold, or whatever, or I haven't time to be hearing that. Like, do you could be remembering a lot of inner child, of words that were said to you in childhood, or even in school, in your family or in your school. Or some grandparents were very judgmental from clients I've had. My grandparents were just beautiful to me. The ones that I knew, they were just lovely, but they may not have been that lovely to their children. Or some grandparents were not very nice to their grandchildren. So wherever you experience this quelling of emotions during your life, it could be even in a job by a boss, So just do a little bit of homework on that and give your inner child what it needs, what it craves for. It wants you to be parented in the way you'd like to be parented. I'll just read the inner child card now. It's like a mushroom. A mushroom inside a mushroom provides a useful symbol for the inner child. The dark-colored inner piece is traumatized you, YEW, and represents that part of us from childhood that may have been wounded or rejected. Because we tend to do to ourselves what has first been done to us, we often only recognize that child part of ourselves when it forces itself upon us by sabotaging our adult experience in order to get our attention. A breakdown, frightening as it may be, could be just a breakthrough of our inner child. Learning to love that part of me that is most needy is an essential key to wholeness. When that inner child is demanding my attention, the feelings that characterize its cries are anxiety and fear, abandonment and confusion, emptiness and loneliness, inadequacy and sadness. Have I learned to recognize and respond to my inner child? When do I experience my inner child trying to get my attention? How can I look after the needs of my inner child? What age would I be if I didn't know what age I am? Inner child, you can do some inner child work yourself. One that I learned along the way was asking your inner child some questions. Have a pen and a paper. Ask your inner child some questions and let her or him write the answers with your non-dominant hand. And you will be amazed at what comes up. What do you need from me? darling inner child, or little Mary, or little Anne, or little Margaret, or whatever. And, you know, what happened in our childhood that has you feeling sad now? And I was brought back to 9 years of age when I lost my grandmother. She was just the best thing since sliced pan, and she loved me and I loved her. And it was a big blow, and nobody realized the blow it was to me. And I'm not sure, did all my stuff start there? I have no idea. Well, I have an idea. It probably started in the womb when I lost my twin, which, did I tell you about that? I'm not sure. It's in my book anyway. I'm not sure if I said it in the previous videos, but I did have a twin brother in the womb, and my mother fell down the stairs. Yes, I did tell you. And no blood or no pain or nothing like that, and I had to name him. And I'd say that's when it started, in the womb, all my taking on of grief and every other emotion. And like, it's not by accident, you know. We experience all we have to experience for greater purposes, you know. We have to become aware of them as the time goes on, and some people never become aware. But having said that, people that aren't consciously aware, a lot of them do go through physical illness, physical operations, physical medicine, and all these things have an effect on the body. And even anesthetic, to me, you're off in another world when you're under anesthetic, and your crown chakra is open, in my opinion. Because did you ever hear somebody after an operation, and sometimes they're talking rubbish, but it may not be rubbish at all, you know? And I remember my father saying he went into the room for one of his big operations, and they were all there with their green and their blue gowns, and don't worry, we're all here, we look after you. And like, you know, was it the doctors? Somebody had said to me before, don't worry, Mary, Archangel Michael and Raphael will be there. And, you know, was he under anesthetic when he saw all these people, or were they all doctors? Because it was a huge operation, and it could have been training, and they may have needed the doctors, but they may have been in a learning capacity too. He had an aneurysm, and his appendix grew into his aneurysm, and like, he should be dead, you know, and it could have exploded. So when they went in for the operation, they discovered this appendix, and it was all infected. So they took out as much as they could without disturbing the aneurysm, and then sent him home for, I think it was 6 weeks, to build him up and to have antibiotics, and then go back and do a triple bypass down there like crazy. He's now 93, and he's still in and out of hospital, skin cancer, and, you know, and I have to learn to accept that. I don't accept it easily. I just say, a man of his age, 93, can you not just leave him alone, you know? But it's his path, and my mother's path is looking after him. And like, I just see codependency in the relationship as well, that she does not know how to mind herself. She knows exactly how to mind him, and will go to the ends of earth to mind him. But any guidance I give her on looking after herself, if she has a complaint, no, she doesn't do it. You know, even the doctor, she'll say, what are they telling me to do that for? You know, so I had, during this COVID period, I had a lot of acceptance and detachment to do, and it did show up in my body as well. I didn't know what it was for a while, and it's not completely cleared yet, but I had to detach and look after me. You know, when you're living in a house with somebody, it's extremely hard to be in your own energy and be detached from what's happening. Now, the twin flame path would have shown me a lot of learning on being detached, but there was an ocean between us, you know. And here I am now with the parents, and listening to what they're saying, watching what they're doing, watching the dynamics between them. Huge learning for me not to get triggered by it. And I will tell you, on the 17th of June 2020, I'm not through it yet. I still get triggered, and will we ever not get triggered? I don't know. I know Mel Brand on Gold Ray Twin Flames on YouTube said there will come a time when nothing affects you. You won't get triggered. So I would be hoping that myself. I really would be hoping that, because I was driving along this morning and they had triggered me, and I said, Spirit, I said, would you just take this anger away from me? I hate feeling like this. And it just wells up, not huge, strong anger, but just frustration and a touch of anger, not huge like it used to be. So I am childhood conditioning. I am living with my parents, and most people say to me, you are so lucky at the age of 61 to have your parents. And on the higher level, both of them alive, age 93 and 87. And I know with my mother being the way she is, that she's shielding us from a lot of the work with my father, because there's a lot of work with him, different ailments he had that need to be still looked after, and contraptions he has in his body. So I am grateful for that, but definitely working through my stuff. Didn't think that would have been further along. There's some card that says, oh no, in the fear card, there was a teaching by a lady lately, and she said, what's your worst, what can happen if your worst fear happens? What's the worst that can happen? And when I left my apartment in 2018, I said the last place I want to be is living with my parents. That would have been the worst. And here I am. I've got how many months? March, April, May, nearly 3 months done now in lockdown. So it's been an experience, and I've done really well. I pat myself on the back. I've done really, really well. I had a healing session on the 21st of January, and for 40 days and 40 nights, the change was happening. The emotions were coming up, deep, deep, deep emotions, mother emotions, women emotions, history emotions, women, feminine, all of that. It was just horrible. But it lifted, I'd say, around the 1st of March. And my little granddaughter was born on the 3rd of March. And I went, oh, thank God, all that's gone before she entered the world. And little did I know, on the 30th of March, I would be up here living with the parents and experiencing more. This trip, this lockdown has mostly been about codependency. We'll deal with that later as well. Codependency and watching it in action. Not saying I was never codependent. I was. It was a huge, huge shedding for me. And I suppose the codependency would go back to the womb as well and loosen the twin. Anyway, we'll come to that later on. So the child is the parent of the adult. So I was saying one of the exercises would be writing with your non-dominant hand, asking questions, maybe writing with your dominant hand and answering with your non-dominant hand. You could do inner child meditations. I wonder, did I record an inner child meditation? I may have, but I don't remember it. Look up inner child meditation. You'll find plenty of them on YouTube. Cause mine wouldn't be the best quality anyway. The ones that I did record, they would have been old, on old equipment, so I might record a few new ones. Actually, I was thinking of putting meditations into a little book. All the ones I've done, hundreds of meditations for groups, and I only wrote a few of them down. I would work by whatever comes up on the day of the meditation, I would sit and I wouldn't even know. I'd kind of know the visual of it, but I wouldn't know the words before I'd go down to facilitate the meditation group. And with the result, it was never recorded, it was never written down, so I may just have to tune in for different meditations if I want to make a book. But that's down the road. So that's our childhood conditioning. So inner child, working on your inner child, that's two ways of doing it. And maybe, maybe seeing yourself as a child. I had a lot of dreams about children, babies. So if you could close your eyes and visualize a baby, and it's you as a baby, what would you do? How would you feel about it? How would you parent it? And you could visualize maybe once a week, like mind it during the week, or you could visualize every day, really. You could, if you really want to work at this, and see it growing up day by day by day. That would be interesting. That's just after coming to me now. So that's our childhood conditioning. I think I will leave it at that because I have 3 emotional cards there, but I will just see, is there anything else connected with the inner child or what I've spoken about. There's 2. No. Love. We'll read the love card. I include this in my book, Onwards and Upwards. It's the first card I deal with. Bit shiny. It's on Amazon. Onwards and Upwards, Mary Keena Donlan. So this is like a perfume bottle. Love. Designed in the shape of a fancy perfume bottle, the piece is entitled, Love is the Strongest Perfume. But what is this elusive thing called love? Sometimes we confuse love with need. The person we supposedly love may not feel loved, but trapped by our insecurity. But that's codependency. I shouldn't really have brought this into it. But what I was going for was love of your inner child and love of self, nurturing of self, looking after self. And then when you're full up and you know how to look after self, you'll know how to look after other people as well. And you'll have the energy to look after other people. Real love is patient and kind. I'm skipping a bit of that because I'll use it with the codependency card. And it also rejoices in the truth. It wants the best for the other and doesn't turn a blind eye to faults. If you love something, set it free. If it comes back, it's yours forever. If it doesn't, it never was. Richard Bach. I will leave that card till the codependency video, okay? And just love. The main message there is love of your inner child. Love of you. Looking at yourself in the mirror and telling yourself, I love you. There was a time I couldn't do that. I remember my ex-husband, he had trained as a psychotherapist, or he was nearly finished. We were separated at the time, but I was in chaos and just absolute emotional breakdown one particular day, and I just ran out to him. He's a very, very good person, and we did need to be apart to do our inner work separately and teach the same thing in different ways, But he said, look in that mirror. Tell yourself you love yourself. Well, if you were to see me, I couldn't, because I thought I was the most horrible person, which I was at the time. but it was part of the soul journey. So come to a point where you can look in the mirror and say, I love you, Mary. I love you, Margaret. I love you, Bartholomew. I love you, Andrew. You know, and when you can do that and feel it in your heart, you're doing really, really well. So I'll leave it at that, and we will do maybe the codependency. We'll either do the codependency or these 3 cards next.